Climate change. Another topic for me to make a video on and watch my subscriber count bleed. I recently saw a Pew Research article that was saying how people who live by the coast are more likely to believe in climate change, but it's also a partisan issue. It's ridiculous how a issue that should have nothing to do with right and left does. This is an issue of simple fact. The climate is changing, and it's getting hotter, people. Now, no matter what you want to believe, even though there's tons of evidence out there to show that it's man-made, or at least part of the effects of it rising is man-made, even if you don't believe it's man-made, here's the thing you all fail to realize. We still have to take care of the problem of the climate and carbon rates rising. We have to take care of this problem. There's no one else who could take care of it but us humans. So to make this a political issue is fucking retarded. The Earth is getting hotter, and we won't be able to sustain ourselves as a species in the future if it keeps going. So we as humans have to do something about it. And what's one of the best ways to do this? Data. Information. And how do we take information on climate change and global warming? Well, NASA, of course. NASA's the best organization to do this. They have the best resources, they have government funding, and they do tons of observation on the globe and everything affecting it. All the information we get for climate change is from NASA. Tons of data. It's insane, the things they do. They measure the shrinking of the ice caps. They measure the change of water flow throughout the earth. They measure the temperature change through decades and centuries. Those are just like three of the obvious things they measure for climate change data. They're measuring probably thousands of other things that we have no idea about. And according to Pew, as it says here, as in the case on many climate change questions, perceptions of whether and how much climate change is affecting local communities are closely tied with political party affiliation. About 3/4 of Democrats, 76%, say climate change is affecting their local community, at least some, while roughly a third of Republicans say this, 35%. That's insane. It's funny though, their data research showed that on the coast, more Republicans believe in climate change than the people who aren't on the coast. And that's most likely because climate change is having an effect on the coast more than it is in the landlocked areas. That could definitely change in the future when in the landlocked areas there's less water than there used to be. Then they'll maybe see the effects of it, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see on that. The thing is though, now that the Republicans are back in power, and they haven't really changed like the youth thinks they have, you know, this youth Republican movement who thinks they're so progressive compared to the other Republicans, they feel like this Trump administration is totally different, you know, because they're outspoken and all that, but they're doing the same things as these other Republicans would have done. They're doing the same thing. Like recently, Trump did this. Trump White House quietly cancels NASA research verifying greenhouse gas cuts. You can't manage what you don't measure. The adage is especially relevant for climate warming greenhouse gases, which are crucial to manage and challenging to measure. In recent years, though, satellite and aircraft instruments have begun monitoring carbon dioxide and methane remotely, and NASA's Carbon Monitoring System, CMS, a $10 million a year research line, has helped stitch together observations of sources and sinks into high-resolution models of planet flows of carbon. Now President Donald Trump's administration has quietly killed the CMS. The move jeopardizes plans to verify the national emission cuts agreed to in the Paris Climate Accords, says Kelly Sims Gallagher, director of Tufts University Center for International Environment and Resource Policy in Medford, Massachusetts. If we cannot measure emissions reductions, you cannot be confident that countries are adhering to the agreement, she says. Canceling the CMS is a grave mistake, she adds. Now, I'm sure Trump's doing this because he took the United States out of the Paris Climate Accords, and it seems as though from that statement that the Paris Accords are there to test if what we are doing is actually helping the reduction of these emissions, which would definitely verify more that whether or not it's our doing or not. So if the steps we're taking to bring down carbon emissions are actually helping, then we were doing the right thing. That's the point. The White House has mounted a broad attack on climate science, repeatedly proposing cuts to NASA's Earth science budget, including the CMS and cancellation of climate missions such as an orbiting carbon observatory 3. Why wouldn't we want to measure the carbon rate if that's what we know is killing it? The people who deny man-made climate change still accept that it's carbon that's doing the damage. They just think it's natural. So why wouldn't collecting data on this be important? This boggles my mind. It makes no sense. Although Congress fended off the budget and mission cuts, a spending deal signed in March made no mention of the CMS. That allowed the administration's move to take effect, says Steve Cole, a NASA spokesman in Washington, D.C. Cole says existing grants will be allowed to finish up, but no new research will be supported. So like you see in the background of this video, all these videos from NASA of them observing climate change. These things won't be funded anymore, I guess. Their research for this is going to dramatically drop, and it's so ridiculous. The agency declined to provide a reason for the cancellation beyond budget constraints and higher priorities within the science budget, but the CMS is an obvious target for the Trump administration because of its association with climate treaties and its work to help foreign nations understand their emissions, says Phil Duffy, president of the Woods Hole Research Center in Falmouth, Massachusetts. And unlike the satellites that provide the data, the research line had no private contractor to lobby for it. Many of 65 projects supported by the CMS since 2010 focused on understanding the carbon locked up in forests. For example, the U.S. Forest Service has long operated the premier land-based global assessment of forest carbon, but the labor-intensive inventories of soil and timber did not extend to the remote interior of Alaska. With CMS financing, NASA scientists worked with the Forest Service to develop an aircraft-based laser imager to tally up forest carbon stocks. They've now completed an inventory of forest carbon in Alaska at the fraction of the cost, says George Hutt, a carbon cycle researcher at the University of Maryland in College Park who leads the CMS team. This article goes on to explain other research that the program has supported. You get the idea, guys. It's crazy how in this day and age there are still things that are partisan issues for no reason that don't have anything to do with it, except for, the political aspects and the funding. One party wants money to do one thing and one more party wants money to do the other. And the fact is the money should go to the most important shit. And this is one of the more important things we should be researching. Because like I said, no matter if it's man-made, a little bit, a lot, or not at all, we're the only ones who are gonna be able to take care of it. So by taking away this kind of funding for these programs, we're just shooting ourselves in the foot. It's asinine and it's backwards. And this administration has definitely helped stifle our progress in this scientific area. Anyway, guys, have a good night.